We take you live now to Ottawa, where federal NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh is speaking. Let's listen in.
At the cost of the Canadian and Mexican economies.
No room left for Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs.
Helps. That is a ridiculous approach in the face of a trade war where we got steel workers in Sault Ste. Marie saying, I'm going to lose my job. We got auto workers in Windsor, auto workers in Oshawa, who every time their line shuts down, they think that's it. I'm going to go back home. We got workers now across the boards that are wondering, what am I going to do to put food on the table? How am I going to keep my home? And Pierre Poilievre proposes a tax cut for millionaires. I mean, it's very on brand for Pierre Poilievre, but it's not what Canadians need right now.
To middle-class families or people making less, would that be something you'd be willing to negotiate on to get this passed with the Conservatives?
He's talking about tax cuts when people are losing their jobs. There's not a job. If you cut someone's taxes, they have no income. What's the point? I'm talking about getting people the protection in place that they need so they can actually survive. We're talking about survival. And Pierre Poilievre is talking about giving rich people a little bit of a benefit. What's the point of that? I'm talking about workers who cannot go back to work because these tariffs mean their job will not be there. Those workers are right now high and dry. There's nothing in place for them. There's no adequate. 60% of workers are not covered by EI. The government has not fixed that. We need to fix that now. And I'm calling on government to acknowledge that this is an emergency. Let's recall Parliament and put in place the supports that people need. We did that during the pandemic. This is potentially worse than that. So let's get to work.
On what basis do you say this is worse than the pandemic? Because a lot of economists would caution against that, saying at the moment we don't need emergency measures of that scale, which would lead to a larger debt and deficit.
Well, that's why I'm calling for EI measures to be improved, not the direct payments that we saw during the pandemic, but the scope and scale of the 25% tariff on our economy when the majority of what we produce, the majority of what we sell goes to the United States, and all of that potentially being shut down because it costs too much could be far more than the pandemic. There are items that we produce in terms of steel and aluminum. If the tariffs are stacked, as we know is potentially going to happen, it could mean that our entire industry gets shut down. The automotive sector, these are good paying jobs. All of those jobs would be lost. The impact is devastating. And it could be, so I'm highlighting that, worse than what we saw during the pandemic, given the scope and given the breadth of what these tariffs could do. We've got to be ready for people.
Trump's reaction today to Canada's announcement that we would be putting in place retaliatory tariffs was to say that if we retaliate, he will add reciprocal tariffs on top of the retaliations and on top of what he has already done. At what point do we stop escalating? We
have to fight to win. And there is no other way to deal with someone like Donald Trump. He's a bully, and he's going to continue to use bullying tactics. So we have to fight back. I think it's really important to remind folks, this is not a fight that we wanted. This is not a war that Canadians wanted. This is a trade war that's going to hurt Americans. It's going to mean that their cost of living goes up. It's going to hurt Canadians. It's going to hurt workers. It is bad. But the only way out of this is to fight back and to stay strong. So we have to fight back. We have to stay strong. And we also need to look for the future where we are less reliant on the United States. And that's why I've talked about the Buy Canadian, Build Canadian, changing the way we buy things so we use our federal dollars towards Canadian-made products, using Canadian content. We've got to really reshape our economy so that we're more resilient and look to other trade partners. But what we're up against right now is serious. And my commitment to Canadians who are watching this today is that I'm going to fight like hell for you. Thank you so much. Merci.
Well, we've been listening to federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh speaking to reporters in Ottawa in response to the tariffs that are now imposed